A noted West Bloomfield resident, one of really the most notable people in media here in our greater metropolitan Detroit area. Chuck Stokes, West Bloomfield resident, great guy, was recognized by the Michigan Historical Society for his work. Now, we're going to check in with someone who knows all about history and I'm sure is very active in the Michigan Historical Society from our own greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. Let's say good morning to Gina Gregory.
Good morning, Dave.
Good
How
morning.
are you?
Good. You like the new glasses? It's kind of
Yes, I do.
I don't know
Yes,
if it's
I
a
do.
little overwhelming or not. I've never really gone with
Yeah,
it.
I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being nice about it. Reading from a really great article by Mark Vest in the
Mm-hmm.
Beacon, who I know he talked to you. He wrote, over the course of his decades-long career in broadcast journalism, Emmy award-winning WXYT Channel 7 editorial public affairs director Chuck Stokes has had the opportunity to interview many people who've had an impact on our national and our state history. Chuck has talked to absolutely everybody. We all know that from watching him. Aside from his work for Channel 7, Stokes, who is a resident of our fine community, West Bloomfield, also contributes articles to Michigan History Magazine, and they recognized him as the organization's history hero. Gina, Chuck Stokes. I don't know if you were there when that happened.
I was there, and
Why don't you tell us all about it?
All right. So I attended the Michigan in Perspective local history conference that was just held at Suburban Showcase for the first time this year, and first time being live in 4 years. So it was great to be back together again. And it's a wonderful conference for 2 days with keynote speakers at breakfast and lunch and in the afternoon. And on Saturday, with that luncheon, Chuck was given an award, the Heroes Award, as they said, uh, for all the work that he's done with that organization, about 20 years of volunteerism, I believe. I think he was president of the board for perhaps 6. And then he's always involved with the local history conference. I've attended annually for probably 10, 15 years and enjoy the conference. And so during the keynote on Saturday, they always interview, no, it was Friday, they always interview a political person. They've had Sandra Levin. They've had, yes, a couple days ago was Governor Snyder. So they sit down and have a conversation, and Chuck leads that. So he does a great job with that. So it was nice to see him recognized by the society and get that award. So I wanted to lift him up, as they say, locally, because we don't hear much about him here in West Bloomfield, but certainly he's played a part in promoting history. So it was nice to be there.
Well, it is. And, we like to honor and recognize all of our West Bloomfield residents, and especially when anything good happens, whether it be someone very notable like Chuck Stokes, who we see on TV and have for decades here in our area, or maybe it's just your neighbor right down the street that does something amazing. So, but we don't want to ignore people like Chuck Stokes, too. So good job.
Right.
It's really exciting that he won that award. Nice article if you want to learn more about it in the West Bloomfield Beacon from just a couple of days ago, and that's just happened over the weekend. So you were at this history conference. Let's talk about that a little bit. Is the high level of interest that we have here in West Bloomfield, thanks in large part to your work and the work of everyone at the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Museum, is that level of interest as high around the rest of the state as it is here in West Bloomfield?
Well, that's a tough question, Dave. I don't know if I can answer it. I can tell you, Chuck had learned about Apple Island, and there was interest in that. So one of our members, Catherine Kangany, director of the Jewish Historical Society of Michigan, also a local resident, gave a presentation on Apple Island, the myths about Chief Pontiac. So folks were interested to hear that. So we participated in the conference. So this conference has about Well, years ago it had 250 people attend. Now, before COVID, I think they were almost to 700. They said last a couple days ago that it was more like 550, upwards of that for the for this conference. So it's always a process. So yeah, people come together with to spend a long time looking at history and chatting with each other, which is really nice.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll try and answer my own question then,
Okay,
and expand on that. I think people love history in the state of Michigan. There is so much historical tourism that goes on here in the state. You think about, some of our greatest destinations like Mackinac Island and even
sure.
just, up in that area, even more recent history. Because I know I'm getting old, so like history is something that happened in my lifetime now too. And one of the things that I've always thought is most fascinating is the history of the Mackinac Bridge and its construction and certainly the way that they got people across the Straits of Mackinac before. So there's history everywhere you go, and maybe just as another measure of how excited people are in history here in our area was evident just at the West Bloomfield Public Library event that we had not long ago when you were able to get a notable local person from our community who has engaged in a big piece of history around Pine Lake to come make a presentation, and we couldn't get everybody in the room at the West Bloomfield Library Sunday
Right,
ago.
right. Yes, that was pretty fantastic to have Paul Wilbur be willing to share his history, and I'm glad that he did. It's certainly been a labor of love for him. He talked about that so he lives at 2690 Pine Lake Road, which is the wonderful home with the blue cedar roof that's so iconic. Probably my favorite house around. But in his presentation, he talked about all the work that needed to be done to it and how he had a list of 45 contractors. I can't even think of 45 trades off the top of my head that would be needed, but he's done it all. So for him to share that with us is certainly interesting. And so I'm looking forward to Civic Center TV being able to share that with us remotely soon. That's a real treasure.
So it was
History lives forever. So
a- absolutely, it was a great presentation. He talks about the home. He talks about the renovation of this amazing home. But Gina, Paul Wilbur also talked about the transition of our community from, a Native American community to, a resort community, to a lakeside community, and told that story so well. So we do have it all captured. We're putting the final finishing touches on that video, and we'll begin playing that next week. And I urge you to tune in to Civic Center TV. We'll get Paul on again. He's a very kind gentleman and gave us a lot of time and was nice to do that presentation and answer
mhm.
everybody's questions. But Gina, I can't remember someone so enthusiastic and invested in the restoration of a home. And I think, Paul realized that home isn't just his. That you mentioned it. I mean, that's a landmark here in our community. And if you haven't driven by, you should check it out. Maybe tune in the next week when we get this fine piece of history up. But go check it out. That was just a great presentation, and I can't urge people enough to tune in. There's also going to be another opportunity to get involved with you and your organization as you have an open house coming up. You want to tell us about it?
I sure do. It's going to be soon, April 2nd. We're calling it the 1913 and 1953 Tax Record Books Open House, so that people can look through those tax records. To learn more about your property, you need to know the township section number, the property description, and perhaps a subdivision that it's in, so that you can look at each of those books, which is just such a process and interesting in itself. And then if you find your property, you can see what the taxes were. And the interesting part about that is that you can then compare the 2 years of what they were. And by knowing that number, you can probably tell whether there was a home on it or not. So that's probably one of the best ways people can learn when their home was made if they don't have it on their deed currently. So it's a nice resource.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Come in and get information, and just be ready. I would have some oxygen available there, because when people see what they're paying now on their taxes and what they used to pay in their taxes, you may need to resuscitate a couple of people.
Well, yeah, life's changed a lot from yeah.
It really has, but that's fun. And will you be able to find out additional information from looking at those records, maybe previous owners and everything, or is it just simply the tax information that people will be able to see when
They
they
would
come
have
in?
the person's name, probably their address, but I'm not, it's been a while since I've cracked them open. It is what it is. It's going to have information going across about that moment in time. So that's
all right. Well, Gina, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Good to chat with you. Thanks for everything you do. I was just so impressed how many people showed up for the Paul Wilbur event at the public library. It was jammed. We had to go get more chairs, and people were standing up all around the room. So I want to urge people to watch that. It hits the air next week right here at Civic Center TV, and we'll try and chase down Chuck Stokes and maybe get a little more insight about his enthusiasm for history and get him on the program. So thanks for making that connection as well today.
okay.
All right.
You're welcome.